Thank you for having me. Always love doing these. My name's Louise Gardner. I'm the founder and managing director of Pledge Consulting. We are a Sydney-based specialist consultancy that predominantly focuses on helping organisations build and deliver better PMOs, PMO-related services, and build project management capability generally. We work nationally across Australia, indeed, around APAC as well, actually. Uh, and as you might tell from the accent, I'm not a native Australian. I spent the first 28 years of my life in the northwest of England. I'm from Liverpool, so I'm very keen to see some Northerners appear in that chat box as
Well,
well as the
actually,
Antipodean
you
contingent.
you just happened to say that as I noticed Helen, who is from Yorkshire. So Helen, can you give us a thumbs up if you think that Louise grew up on the wrong side of the pond? And do you know what? I'm inspired now because we got people from all around the world here. We've got people from Botswana, some really exotic places, from Lagos in Nigeria, from Botswana, Minnesota, right? Doesn't get more exotic than Minnesota. So what I'd love you all to do in the chat as well is just tell us how you say hello locally. So Helen, I'm going to say A up for us. I grew up in Yorkshire as well. So A up from Yorkshire, and let us know how you say hello locally. We got a howdy
Helen,
there. We got a howdy
looks
Hi,
like
there.
Helen.
howdy.
Hi.
I remember
Helen,
my times in Texas. Howdy.
Howdy. There you go. There you
¿Qué
go.
onda? How
Um,
do?
fantastic. There you go. We're getting some good ones in here. So Pedro, so I interrupted you, Louise. Were you finished?
No, I was
Sorry.
just going to say, it looks like Helen's with me on the Liverpool thing, as she worked in Liverpool for several years. So our greeting would be, "All right, girl. All right, girl." I'm back in Australia now. I'm not quite sounding quite as scouse as I did last week. But,
Very good. Pedro, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, thanks Stu for inviting me to this meeting and to join with Louis Garner, a relevant expert in Australia, and you with a long career in UK and Australia. I'm Pedro Balsa. I'm the managing partner of Liefman. Liefman is a consultancy in project management. Our specialty is the full life cycle of the projects. So we cover the proposal phase from a vague idea of somebody having an idea to make maybe a railway crossing all Australia to the end of final execution, and sometimes even the so-called concession. So sometimes the project expand beyond the completion of the project. I have been working in maybe 21, 22 countries now, maybe more. At a certain point in time, I was not so proud having an account of all the places. And what I'm more interested is in the personally, is in the value and the people. To the value is achieved with the people. There is no other way. So the social aspects of project management.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. So you started off with people. So again, get ready to jump into chat because I'm going to throw some stuff at you. So the topic tonight is change is not a choice, but it is a challenge. So again, fingers on keyboards if you would. Just tell me, are you happy or sad? Right? So is change a good thing that gets you excited? Or is it something that you think is just a pain and you wish it would go away and it's making your life difficult? So happy or sad, little smiley faces, in you go. And while we do that, we've got some nice smiley faces here. This is good. Lots of smiley faces, loving it. So we've got people who are enjoying change and are excited by it. So my first question, Pedro, let's start with you, is about what's driving the change, because it does feel like it's just getting faster and faster and faster. So what are some of the things that are kind of driving this? What's some of the context here?
Well, the context is the so-called project economy, which is a concept not invited but fostered by the Project Management Institute. What the project management means or project economy means, it's very simple. In the past, it's common that you run a bakery, you go to your bakery, open the gate, bake the cakes, sell the cakes, close your bakery tomorrow, open the door, bake the cakes, the same cakes. What happened now, even for a bakery? That the recipes are too fatty, so we need to change from vegan. Do you have any social components? Do you have vegetarian? So you need to change. Even very, very, let's say, old-fashioned business need to adapt to the change. What this change means, or what the project management provide, and a structure for the change. And something that we hear very often in Texas. If you don't put a deadline, will never ever happen. So say I need to lose weight. Okay, I need to lose 10 kilos in 1 year. It's not lose weight in general terms, because after 5 years, you know, not only have not lose any kilo, but you are 5 kilos fatter. And what the aspect for the people or the difficulty for the people. People has put a smiling face, but if you go to the studies, there are several studies about if people like or hate change. All concur that the people in general terms are more resistant to change than in favor of the change. So in general terms, people suffer with the change. But what means for the people that they are, instead of having a role for all your life, you need to go to a project, the project ends, and then you need to go to the project, and the project ends. And this is a significant change in how the people work in the companies.
So Louise, are you a smiley face or are you a grumpy face?
Well, by the necessity of what we do, I think we can only be a smiley face, can't we? Yeah, look, I agree with Pedro 100%. I think the world has never changed faster than it does right now. And I'm sure I used to say this to our people and our customers before COVID. I feel like in the last, I'm going to talk about the before times a little bit. So pre-2020, I think, the rate of organizational change was greater than we'd ever seen it before up to that point. And then COVID happens. And what we see since then is it going even faster, if that was possible. And it seems it is possible. I think, I think pre-COVID, I used to say that on average, our customers were going through organizational restructures about, every 2.5 to 3 years. That's 12 to 18 months now. Large organizations and government agencies, who are predominantly our customer base, what we observe is that they are in an almost continual cycle of change. So unfortunately, the grumpy face people have got a problem, because this is something that we just have to deal with. Like it or not, it's the way the world is now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's great to sort of be a little introspective and ask yourself, how do I feel about this? But at the end of the day, it's happening, guys. Whether you want it to or not, it's happening. So you can, my 16-year-old son, I have twin boys, and he came to me the other day, Dad. He said, I've discovered this amazing secret online to happiness. I said, oh, what's that? And it was basically, I forget who the quote was from, but it was basically, give me the patience to live through things I can't change. Give me the energy to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Right. So the things that you know you can change, and you can get out there and do it, go change it. Right. But
this is a quote from San Ignacio, who is the Spanish founder of Jesuitas, who is
Oh,
the
yeah. Do you know, I've seen it attributed to several people, Pedro, so I'm not going to get into a fight over that. You can have that for the for the Spanish speakers today. We'll give you that one. 1-0 to Spain. Uh-oh. We'll see what the score is by the end. So change is happening, and here's sort of what I'd love to try and understand is, so change is happening because organizations' goals have moved, right? They've got goals, they're trying to achieve them. So what's the role of the PMO? What should the role of the PMO be in making change happen? Pedro.
Well, the role of the PMO is to join the business with the projects, since the component of business or investment is higher, and the component of routinary keep the lights on part of the company has less resources, has less money available. That means the PMO play a central role in the change. If you would like to make more projects, if you would like to change more and faster, as we stated very clearly, we need a better connection. The projects are executed in order to achieve value, and who knows where the value is? The business. Unless you run a construction company where the value is to build things and then somebody paid you for doing that. Okay, in this case, the value is in the deliverables itself or themselves. But for most of the companies has projects in order to provide certain new feature, new characteristics, new process or new machinery to produce chemicals or pharma or sell more. Or so in order to do that, we need to fully understand the business goals. That's why I always say that I'm being a PMO consultant maybe something which is could be perceived against my business. But I always say that the PMO head, the PMO manager, should be somebody from the company. This role could not be assigned to an external. Maybe all the other roles could be done, but the key role of the PMO manager, PMO head, or whoever or whatever you would like to name it, is to understand the company and what is possible, what is not so possible, what is C-level executive like and what is other like, what's the mindset. And this is very difficult to achieve for somebody who has not been working in the company for a relatively long period.
So Louis, that's an interesting point, Pedro. So Luis, I mean, the part of that is, project management is a fairly technical discipline, right? Is that the same so do project managers make good PMOs? Because Pedro's kind of seems to be saying that, it helps if you come from the business and understand the business a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So do
You
project
won't be
managers
surprised.
make good PMOs?
You won't be surprised to know I have a view on that. Good comment in the chat from Ashok actually as well. If you don't mind, if I build on Ashok's point, the role of the PMO is to facilitate change. It's the oil in the engine. If it was not there, the engine would sound like a tractor and stop. Even projects without PMOs have a virtual PMO, even if it's only the project manager. So similar point, right? The way I like to, so I've got two answers to this question. My first answer to it, my kind of reflex answer to it is PMO and project management. I believe that certainly the role of the PMO manager and the role of the project manager, they tend to draw different types of people. The base discipline is undoubtedly very similar, but I think project managers, and of course, many of us in PMO have started off as project managers. So I'm not saying never the twain shall meet. Of course they do.
Right.
But project managers, those who continue to deliver projects, do so because they like that thrill of the chase, that adrenaline rush of bringing something home, and all the ups and downs that entails. Often that person isn't the person that's going to provide oversight to a portfolio and not be involved in the cut and thrust. Different personality types, I think. So even if we agree that the discipline is essentially the same, I think the personality types to do a good job here can be quite different.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. So the way I think of it is that, here at least here in the UK, right? In schools, head teachers have to teach some lessons, 1 or 2 lessons a week, right? And the reason they do that is so that they stay current, so that their skills stay sharp, right? But being a head teacher is actually a different role. It's a different job to being a teacher, right? It's a business role, really. And it's the same thing for PMO. It's a transition from being a project management role into being a business role. And I think it's about Ashok, great to see you, man. I don't think Ashok's missed one of our webinars for about 6 months now, so I think you get a little gold star for being up this late, Ashok. But I think Ashok's comment is great, because it's all about delivering the change that the business needs and wants, right? Increasing the return. The business is investing in these projects to try and achieve certain business goals. So how do we increase that return on the investment, right? And that's really. And sometimes that takes the form, Pedro, you were talking about alignment and which projects to do. You're talking about rebalancing between BAU and your strategic projects, or your move the business forward projects. Louise, one of the things I know you're good at, really good at, is thinking through what some of the processes are and making sure that basic project hygiene is in place, that kind of thing. So these are all sort of, they're not there because we get a gold badge for having good project hygiene. It's there because that will help us deliver value. Right?
Well, let me give you the second answer to the question, if I may, because I did say it was kind of a two-pronged answer. So first of all, different types of people. But what PMO essentially comes down to, and again, Pedro touched on this nicely, is data. And so both the project managers and the PMO are essentially, if everybody's doing their job properly and following processes, they are building cataloging performance data on projects. And it's not just PMOs that do this. Project managers have the primary accountability for cost forecasts, schedule data, risk and issue data, and it's the PMO that typically consolidates that data, which enables it to support decision making. But there is no data without the project managers. So you can't have one without the other either. Everything, and I'm thinking about this more and more at the moment, as we have more conversations about how organizations can successfully execute their strategic goals to show value. That's what it always comes back to. And, my go-to on this is show me the data. What data do we have? What data do we want? How are we going to get the data? And that has to start with project managers.
Well, Luis, this is a fundamental point in my opinion. Or any PMO should have at least one feature, which is the called single point of truth. So if the PMO say that the capital budget is 20 million Australian dollars, it's 20 million Australian dollars. Finance could not challenge, HR could not challenge, the CIO could not challenge. This figure is accepted. If we are not in this space, if we are in a situation that finance say that the capital investment is X million, but in my project budget is different, we are in deep trouble. So a key element, as you mentioned, is data. So to avoid a lot of discussions, I thought, no, we could not thought the data is exactly 6,100,000 euros. Full stop, no discussion. So, but the good thing is that you could relatively rapidly reach this point with the available, if you make a good implementation of the project management tools and find a way to export the cost, fundamentally the cost from the financial systems to the project management systems, or merges in one way or another, you are in good shape. So that's key, in my opinion. moving to the aspect, the soft skills aspects, I tend to think that the manager is more the leader than the PMO manager. The it's like well, this metaphor of war are not very popular with the Ukrainian war, but I tend to think that are very illustrative for this purpose. There are people who are very happy in the trenches, and there are people who are very good at the headquarters moving maps. And so both, and I tend to think that the PMO manager is more somebody that might have some experience as a project manager in the past, but this is not the key. The key is to understand the big picture and to be able to discuss with both the project managers and the C-level executives. And the difficulty, and maybe it's useful that he is not the best possible project manager due to the worst situations where the project manager provide lessons to the other the PMO manager dictate lessons to the project managers. You should do that. You should maybe need to compress the schedule. Use this tool. Hire this guy. You have over resources. This is not a discussion. This is not the discussion. The discussion is we have these projects. We have we need to accomplish. Do you need anything from other elements or departments from the company to help you? You need people for testing your IT system. Maybe these people are from finance or warehouse or marketing. This is the role of the PMO manager.
So I'm really interested that you both kind of start with data, right? Because my instinct is always to start with the business goals, right? What are we trying to achieve as a business? Because at the end of the day, the only reason we do projects is to help drive the organization towards those goals, right? So all that change that's going on is, you know, the senior leaders are trying to figure out, you know, how should we respond as an organization, and projects are how they make that happen.
Mm.
So you know, what are your thoughts around the role of, and I think we're sort of saying the same thing, because you were talking about data as an input into governance, right? And governance is that process of decision making where you figure out, you know, which projects and how do we allocate resources and all of those things. So how do you see those two coming together to enable change?
I think to start with business goals, from a PMO perspective, you have to be a PMO that has an acknowledged strategic value from the beginning. So something like an enterprise PMO or an investment PMO. If the PMO is in at the ground floor and has a hand in those strategic decision making and prioritization and all of those things, then business goals is a very sensible and straightforward place to start. But the reality is a lot of PMOs don't start there. A lot of PMOs are set up as a kind of add-on to a delivery function. They might even be there as just a center of excellence function to do a bit of reporting. And my argument is that even those PMOs can support strategic value, but to do so, no one's listening to them to talk about strategic goals. They will in the end, but they've got to build their credibility, and you build your credibility by stating a credible case supported by data. So that's why I probably have a slightly different perspective, Stuart, because I see more PMOs that really get their life post that strategic function. Once they've come over the fence into delivery, that's where we tend to see more PMOs.
So here's implicit in that, Louise, is sort of the implication that, you know, those PMOs that are not starting with the goals, right? They've been set up, or they've been created. Someone waved a wand in the executive team, right, to create that PMO. And so the assumption there is that the execs don't really understand the value that a PMO can bring to enable change. So fingers on keyboards again, guys. Happy face versus frowny face. So happy face means that your executives really understand the link that the PMO, the role the PMO can play to enable change. And a frowny face is that your execs don't get it at all, and they think you're just an admin function. And then I'm sure some of you will be somewhere in between. Whoa, I don't, is that a, all right, that's definitely a very grumpy face
Well, I've
there
got
from
some
Alexa.
frownies from Alexis. Wow.
Yeah,
Stephanie's not sure.
we've got some in the middle there. We've got
There's some happy people.
some who get it, a bit of a mixture on this one. Yeah, that's what I would expect.
Yeah.
I mean,
Crying.
yeah. So transparent choice does project prioritization. So we are by definition, right? We get involved in those with those PMOs who are usually they're not there. They're trying to make that transition, right, to being a much more, business value
Well,
centric.
if we talk about the PMO implementation cycle,
Yeah.
I always thought that it's easier to start with a sort of control PMO, and with this control PMO that you as forecast, ensure timelines and deadlines, is track risk, ensure project completion and handover. From this control PMO, which is relatively rapid to set up, it's easy to move to an strategic PMO. On the contrary, if you start from the process, so we start with training people, develop the process, the project management process, prepare artifacts, it's a long journey. During this long journey, it's very likely that the C-level executive change mindset, find something more interesting, and maybe the PMO disappear, or what is even worse, keep us a sort of a structure that very few people take any interest. So it's still there. Maybe not a lot of people working on there. Prepare some reports, but not provided any value. If you are very tactical, as Luis stated, and I agree that most of the PMOs in practice are more tactical than strategic PMO. If you are very tactical, the role of the strategic is placed by the business sponsor. So if the PMO has not a real understanding of the company objectives and how to put it in practice and what is best and what is worse, we need to rely individually in the business sponsor from each individual project to provide the strategic direction. So that means, and in practice, what we did when I was a PMO head for a multinational company, a petrochemical company based in Texas, we manage a portfolio of 100 projects worldwide. What we did is to say a business sponsor should have this authority. So it should be not a vice president, but the people who report to a vice president, the so-called corporate heads, HR head, press head, human resources heads. And for the subsidiaries, there should be the general manager as a minimum, somebody who report to the general manager. So by elevating the profile of the business sponsor, we expect that he has or she has a vision of the company strategy.
So Ashok's on fire tonight, actually. So he's banged another couple of great comments, but I love Willetta's comment. That one got a double hearts from me. Projects should be derived from the business strategy, period. Yeah, absolutely. Now, so here's the thing, right? So if we take our premise that change is happening and it's getting faster and harder to keep up, And the PMO is kind of all about being the oil in the machine, Ashok, right? That Ashok said earlier. Then surely the PMO should be whatever the company needs to accelerate that change, to increase the return on investment on that change.
Yeah.
And sometimes that, so we're talking to one company at the minute, out in the Middle East, and they're a huge company, huge multi-billion-dollar company. And the thing so where their CEO wants them to start is just to be able to tell us, how many projects are we doing? Because they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And where's the money being spent? Because they don't know. Right. So sometimes it's as simple as that. That's the starting point. But other times it's, how do we align? It's really, what is the thing that is in the way of your organization delivering the change they need? That's the place to start, I guess. So
What we see, sorry, Stuart, I was gonna say, what we see is when a PMO meets that need and meets it successfully, whatever it is, they get asked to do the next thing and
exactly
the
that.
next thing. And then sooner or later, that must lead to the strategic piece.
Yes,
Even if that first
has to.
thing was something like doing an inventory of projects or a forecast piece, very tactical stuff done well builds credibility, which builds onto the next thing.
That's it. So Laura Barnard talks about this quite a lot as well. And what she says is, give them what they want first, then give them what they need.
Yeah.
Right? Because you might know what they need, but if that's not what they want, then you're not going to get support for it. So give them what they want first, and then give them what they need. So all right. Here's a little change of topic then. So what goes wrong? What gets in the way of delivering change? You guys have been around for a long time. I think I could say that politely,
Thanks.
right? Yeah, no, that's okay. I know you're 20,000 miles away, Louise. You can't hear me, so I'm fine, right? So you guys have been around for a while. You've seen some good practice. You've seen things that maybe weren't so solid. So where have you seen it done badly, and what were some of the challenges? What were some of the causes of things going wrong?
I think, in my opinion, firstly, we need to balance operations or the operational component and the strategic component. So the operational component is the project execution, and the strategic component is the portfolio management. And there is sometimes a gap. If you have a good strategy, but poorly executed, you will not provide any value. Obviously, the opposite is equally the same. The only difference or the advantage is if you have a good strategy, the operational performance of the project is better. This is measured by PMI, and there are 51% better results in terms of time. I think 40% better in terms of budget. And why? You always ask me why.
Why?
Yeah, what's my opinion? Due to people would like to work in projects that has meaning, projects which are sensible, projects that they thought are resources. So if they thought they are in a project which, and we have talked about sometimes about Project Apollo, launch a rocket to the moon. If anybody working in Apollo, even if you are cleaning the floor, are very happy, very proud. They're working in Project Apollo. They don't say that I'm cleaning the toilets. So, and the alignment automatically creates, well, obviously not everybody could work in Project Apollo or projects of this nature, or Project Purple, the design of the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody could work here. But if you are in a project which is reasonable, well prepared, you thought it's a good idea, you thought that the company will be slightly better with this project, you thought that the project could be accomplished in the time that is scheduled. People are perform better. People perform better. And on the contrary, if the idea is bad, if you take the wrong decision, if you choose a project which never ever should be selected, there is no way that the people who manage the project resolve. If you go to a place where nobody would like to fly and then you put an airport,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
could do a fantastic airport, but people will not fly to this airport.
So I'll tell you what, Ismail's just made an interesting comment. Louise, maybe you can pick this one up. So you're saying resistance from middle managers towards the PMOs, fear to change, ignorance in the system, probably self-unconfidence. And I'm gonna suggest that sometimes the resistance comes because the PMO is making a pig's ear of it, right? They turn into the process police, and they over they're making it harder than it needs to be. So what are your thoughts about that whole area, Louise?
Oh, look, I think when the PMO makes a pig's ear of it, and as a staunch career PMO person, it really rankles me that PMOs get such a bad rap sometimes for making a pig's ear of it. When this happens, certainly in my observation, it stems from poor sponsorship and not having a clear idea of what the PMO is there to do. Look, you can always get a bad team of people. Like, it very rarely happens that you get a whole bad team of people, though, doesn't it? You can get one bad apple or a couple of bad hires. You're not going to get a whole team of turkeys usually. If you've got an underperforming PMO, I would suggest it's the fault of whoever has come up with the vision for this PMO. And Ismail's points really important, actually. So there's 2 points in there for me that I kind of want to pull apart. There's the one of sponsorship generally. Sometimes PMOs are put in place because somebody tells an executive that they need a PMO. And that executive doesn't really know what that means or care very much, actually, but the auditor says, or one of the directors say, or it came out in a report somewhere, let's have a PMO. So let's have a PMO. We'll hire this team. Off you go. No clear understanding, no clear purpose or objectives. They are then seen to be an overhead function that make a pig's ear of it. No good comes from that. Then we get the bit that I think is interesting. In what Ismail says is perhaps a PMO that is not doing a terrible job, but what they are coming up with is not popular. So projects are not performing well, and people don't like that news. Some organisations are big fans of what we call the watermelon project. Green on the outside, red in the middle, and it suits everybody to have things green on the outside. A PMO comes along, starts doing their job well, asking questions, not always liked. Now, that can be a good team of PMO professionals in an organisation that is never going to allow them to thrive and never really going to get the value from a PMO. So there's a couple of things in there, I think.
Well, yeah. So I love that. Gosh, where to go next? So let's keep going with that. So the original question was about what can really slow you down, right? The delivery change, and I think we've sort of landed in culture now, right? A culture that's resistant to change for whatever reason, right, is one of the big barriers, and I think that the blame culture is probably the most toxic of all. Those of you in Australia, if you know Amanda Oakenfull, right? She goes in whenever she goes into a new gig. She wears red. She brings in red roses. She makes everything around her red because she wants to set the culture that red is good. Red is not bad. Red is good. Because if we see red, we can manage it. But if we don't see it, we can't manage it, right? So, and that's a cultural thing. So how do you set up the right culture, Pedro, to enable change?
Well, I think you need to have two streams. One stream is, let's say call it technical and process stream, and there is a change management of people stream. You need to have a change manager or if it's a smaller, somebody, maybe the project manager, maybe the PMO need to take this role, but and you need to sell the duties on individual basis. So you need to go to the stakeholder
on a what basis, Pedro? Say it again.
on individual basis.
Individual.
So it's not on the benefit of the company. So the company will double turnover, okay, but what means for me? I will receive a salary increase. I will work less. I will be promoted. So the change, you need to identify the impact of the change in each key stakeholder, and for the rest, you need to group it in certain bugs, let's call it, or certain groups or teams, and then need to select a sort of example or super user that you ask it questions. You need to understand the impact of the change in each individual, or in most individual possible. And then you need to prepare a strategy for any single individual if it's key, and for the groups if it's are not so let's say important for the change. And one important thing is very often the way that the people prioritize the stakeholders is based on the business card. So the CEO is very important, COO is slightly less, and that's it. It's the so-called. In reality, you need to prioritize in order to the impact on the project. To some people who could have a very relatively low business card, but could stop you the project. Let's say a clear example is when you need the sign-off for somebody on the authorities. The individual who has assigned your project to provide the license to operate is key. It's more important even than the general manager at this particular point in time. The general manager could change, but this guy will have your project and will decide to, let's say, provide un go or un no go. So and you need to identify these people due to very often project fails due to everybody knows who is the CEO. Everybody knows who is his manager.
So
But
some comments from the audience. We'll letter again. Each stakeholder group / individuals are different. What's with them? What's in it for me? And there's lots of things underneath the iceberg, invisible things that can get in the way: politics, fear, ego. So I think that's aligned with what you were talking about a minute ago, Pedro.
yes, we have one of our colleagues, consultants in our company, Liebman, came from the general management role of equivalent of Fortune 500, but in Spain. And he always said, when there is a change, there is a status quo, and you need to understand that will be I will use again a pattern. There are people who will receive benefit, and somebody will not receive benefit, and that's true. So when there is a change, the equilibrium changes, and when the equilibrium changes, not everybody receive more, let's say, in this simple word, than used to have. So all these guys will be resistant, and it's likely to be resistant. So it's very I see in the past, due to people thought that people in resistance are old-fashioned, are middle management, and are very resistant, while the C-level executives embrace the change. That's not true. You need to understand what is the impact for this particular individual. And I see people which change in role. One was the engineering manager, another was the production manager. And then they swap. So keep in the company, but swap the chairs. And then the reason that the other used to have is the reason that the new people in the position, the new person in the position has. So ask it for the material that he has not provided previously when he has the other role. So it's more likely to see that people are defending reasonable aspects from his own perspective or from the perspective of the role that he plays in the company than personal attitude or mentality.
Brilliant. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I want to come back to kind of the PMO and come up a level, right? So we've been talking about how do you deliver change, what gets in the way to change in projects, what gets in the way, things like this. Now, we've seen PMOs change, and when they change, we've seen incredible increases in the amount of value they give to the organization, to the amount of change they're able to deliver. It would be one way of looking at it. And again, just because of where we sit, right? We do portfolio management software, so we see that side of it. But we regularly seen organizations implement, make changes at that portfolio level, the portfolio management level, and double the return to the business, right? The strategic return to the business. And so, but to get there, we've got to change actually the PMO and what it is. So let's come up to that level, and I'm going to ask Louise first. How do you start thinking about building a case for change, right? Because we've already said you start off by doing whatever the business wants,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about what the business needs, right? The business really needs to accelerate. So how do you start building that case for change and having that
great question. More and more, we're finding our way into those conversations is to talk about benefits, project benefits. As economic times have gotten harder, I think globally over the last 12, 18 months, even before that, actually, there's been a real increase in organizations making a commitment to getting value from their projects or realizing benefits. Now, you still get a lot of organizations that say, oh, we want to get the benefits without really knowing what that means. But there's more of an appetite than ever before for them to take the next step in that conversation and talk with people like us. Say, how do we realize these benefits? And, the conversation that we have is that there is no better group that you already have in your organization to help you track, manage, realize benefits because they're already embedded in part of that life cycle, at least part of it, than your PMO team. And so that tends to focus the leadership team into giving the PMO, if they don't already have a seat at the strategic or leadership table, then that conversation can help push that conversation along.
Brilliant. Pedro, same question. What do you think? How would you start that conversation about, hey, we need to change the PMO to really accelerate our ability?
In order to accelerate, we need to do two things, which are quite simple to say, not so easy to select the right projects.
Yeah.
And execute it as fast as you can. When you execute it very fast, there are multiple advantages. There are less risks that something happens, like Ukraine or COVID or whatever. You have focus. You are working in 10 projects. Maybe you execute 100 projects a year, but maybe at this particular point, I have 25. I don't have 100 starting on 1st January and completing on 31st December. Maybe I execute 30 and then 30 and then 30. So we have more focus. We have delivered the value earlier, which is important. We discussed it before when we prepared this event, that there are very often windows. If you open a hotel, 1 month delay could ruin the benefit or destroy the benefits. I agree with Luis that the benefit realization, you need to have a plan. When you are preparing the business case or the project, you need to determine what the benefits will be. But this is not the end. You need to take into account the benefits during the project execution. For instance, when you make a change, you should ask if this change affects the benefits. As mentioned, the hotel is a very clear example. If I delay 1 month, the benefit that I will achieve this year, we will achieve it next year. And then somebody need to, due to a very, usually a project continues providing value for years, but the project manager is not there. So who should control or monitor, let's say more monitor than control this?
Brilliant, brilliant.
Would be the PMO. In the past, I see examples where when I start doing projects for capital projects above £2 million, I work for a British company at the minute. We need to do 2 capex review, one 6 months completion, the other one 2 years completion. But the review is done by the project manager. So all the projects has been very successful due to nobody would like to ruin his own work. So the review could not be done by the project manager. And the responsible of the benefits is not the project manager. In most of the cases, if not in all, should be an owner of each benefit.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that statement. All right, so we just have a couple of minutes left here. And so Luis, Pedro, I'm going to ask you to tell people how you can get in contact with you. But before we do that, I have one more quick question for everybody. So earlier on, Guy put a little funny little note in there that the PMO stands for the Procrustean Management Office. So my question to everybody is, who had to Google the word Procrustean? So who's going to admit that they had to Google the word? Here we go. Yeah. I'll confess I did as well. And actually, I've got Guy. I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but Guy and I actually spoke the other day, and I got to tell you, he's a really smart cookie, and we ended up. We were talking about we covered Julius Caesar at one point. We had Titans fighting the gods. We had all kinds of things going on in this conversation. And it was all in the context of PMOs and PMO effectiveness and things like that. So Guy, thank you for bringing your great intellect and vocabulary to the table. Really enjoyed that. So Louise, kick us off here. We're in the home stretch. How should people get in touch with you to talk about these issues and to, if they've got a challenge, how can they get in contact with you to get started?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to get in touch with me, Louise Gardner, or you can follow our or check out our company page, which is Pledge Consulting, or you can take a look at our website, which is pledgeconsulting.com.au. I hesitated there because we do have a pledgeconsulting-.com that we've just set up as well. But yeah, .com.au. Yeah, but LinkedIn, you'll find me most of the time lurking in corners of LinkedIn.
Brilliant. And Louise is in Australia, so remember that .au after the .com. So it's .com.au. Otherwise, you'll end up somewhere completely different. Pedro, same to you, my friend. How should people reach out to you if they want to chat to you? You're based in Europe, so you cover a very different time zone and geography to Louise.
Equally the same. I'm very active in LinkedIn. Our webpage is liebman.eu. Maybe for making easier, we could send the contact details in the follow-up message that you send after the.
Good idea.
It will be easier and then it's a link which facilitates. So
Fantastic.
And we could discuss, and very often we exchange information due to I tend to think that most of the people in the audience are very seasonal professionals, which has a lot to say.
Perfect. Thank you, Lenora. That's great. So Lenora will be coordinating getting emails out. Once we've recorded this, we'll get emails out. Amani, sorry, I just noticed your hand is up. Feel free to jump into chat. if you have comments. Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time here. And we've got so many comments and so many questions and so many ways we could take this conversation. Maybe we'll need to do this one again and keep the conversation going. So thank you everybody for, oh, that was for Googling. Brilliant. Excellent. So thank you everybody for attending, but thank you also for engaging in the conversation. It does make it makes it more fun for us, frankly. But
great
also,
comment. I'd like to keep chatting with every single person who commented. So yeah, thank you for the engagement. It was great.
yeah, it really makes, and it means that we end up talking about stuff that is actually interesting to you as well. So so thank you for that participation. Really wouldn't have been as good a session without it. So on that, for once, we're going to finish on time. And it just remains to thank both Louise and Pedro on behalf of the audience and on behalf of Transparent Choice for sharing your expertise with us tonight or this morning, depending which time zone you're in. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.